They're singing, true freedom is no small thing. But how do we find it? How do we live with horror or with overwhelming difficulty, or even simple difficulty? One of the most powerful ways of keeping ourselves alive and keeping our souls alive is through creativity. The creative response is not the only way to a better solution, but the process itself is life-giving. Answers to the questions are really not the answer. It is being alive while we are alive. That's what we want. Mohammed Subusumu Haribujoyo, our Baba, once asked, what is culture? And then he answered, it is the skill of the inner self. I'll say it again. Culture is the skill of the inner self. And then 10 years later, he added, culture is the latihan of life. Young Mulia Bapa devoted his life to bringing a spiritual practice to people all over the world that had, among other things, two central purposes. To have each person come true. That is to say that each person who receives the latihan can become fully the being that God intended him to be through the realization of their true talents. And therefore, to become truly alive, one might say it is through the process of becoming alive that one's true talents become clear and we become able to express them. A person like that is well on his way to becoming a human being, a being filled with gratitude and awareness of God and of God's world, of other people, and to be able to contribute something to that world. This evening, we will visit a rarefied country populated by people who were able to remember their humanity and to act out of their human souls, even in the most desperate of circumstances. All of the music that you will hear tonight was written in the camps, in the actual camps, during World War II, or in other forms of captivity during the war. It was written by Jews, by Catholics, by the Romani people, by gays, by Muslims, by people of every race. The extremity of their circumstances, the very darkness of it, makes the radiance of an alive human soul very obvious and very bright. It also makes clear the value of becoming a human. So these musicians are presented not as victims, but as teachers, and more simply, as artists. The cruelty of their circumstances is the ground, but not the point of our effort to bring these concerts into being. The point of it is to enjoy and to appreciate the voices of these bright souls. The roots of creativity are many, but there are primary sources. First, the deep taproot into the spiritual essence of God's world. After that, we have the culture that we have inherited from our ancestors, which includes the wisdom of our greatest cultural stories, our folk tales, and also the flavor of our different ways of life. Do we eat with chopsticks or a spoon? Do we communicate through drums or an iPhone? Then into the culture that we have received, we add the culture that we make. Giovannino Guareschi, interned in a concentration camp in Germany, took the form of the folk story and wrote a tale of longing, anger, determination, and love that became an opera of defiance, the Favolo di Natale. Arturo Coppola, his bunkmate, wrote the music. They both survived the camps, and later when the opera was published, he wrote the following introduction to it.
This tale was born in a Northwest German concentration camp in December of 1944, and the muses that inspired it are named cold, hunger, and nostalgia. I wrote this tale huddled in a bottom bunk, and above my head was the creator of its melody. I sent up to Coppola the words to songs, old and naked, and Coppola sent them back down, clothed in music, soft and warm as Angora wool. Now, the grandmother tells the child a fairy tale to make him sleep, I said to the bedboards above. Or now, the grandmother, the child, and the dog get on a train and make a long voyage in the night. And the inspirational muses rose to the upper bunk and from above rain down musical notes. Coppola composed the music and conducted the orchestra. The choir sang. The violinists couldn't move their fingers because of the cold, and because of the humidity, the pegs came loose. Voices became tired from hunger and cold, clothed in rags. I told the tale. In prison, everything to do with the outside world becomes a fairy tale. In prison, colors too were a fairy tale, because in the camp, everything was beige, and the sky, if once blue, or a branch, if covered with green, these were things of another world. We thought of the simplest things of the outside world as normal life, as marvelous, vast beauties, and missed sun, water, and flowers as if they no longer existed. It was because of this that grown men found it natural that for Christmas I told them a fairy tale and thought it incredible that in a tale a man met with his mother and his child. What fantasy, they said. How do you think of all these strange events? So, here we begin our story. Once upon a time, there was a prisoner. Now, once upon a time, there was a child. Better, once upon a time, there was a poem. Better yet, once upon a time, there was a child that had a father in prison. We'll do it like that. And the poem, you say, how does that enter in? The poem enters in because the child memorized it to recite to his father Christmas night. But as we explained, the father of the child was a prisoner in a land far, far away. Christmas Eve arrived, and the family were seated around the table, but one chair remained empty. The child, who knows why, rose from his stool in front of the vacant chair and recited the Christmas poem in a loud voice. Ding dong the bell, this night will sound, and a great silver star above in the sky will burn. The child recited his poem before the empty chair of the father, and as soon as he finished, the window opened wide, and a gust of wind entered. The poem opened its wings and flew away with the wind. The poem opened its wings, you say? And how did it open its wings? The poem is perhaps a butterfly. No, the poem is a bird made of clear blue sky. held together with a moonbeam, a bird that was born like a flower blooms in the warm heart of the poet, and soon escapes from its red cage and goes jumping through the white pages on the desk. But it couldn't yet fly because it lacked wings. And now the poet dips the pen and he makes wings with the most beautiful words that come to mind. And every verse becomes a feather. And when it was all finished, the bird takes flight and brings the word of the poet over all the world. To come to the point, the poem opened its wings and went out with the wind.
Senza una stella minore la notte crudele, l'incubo tristimo cielo, ma nel mio ciel la luce segreta sei tu, che mi rischiara la triste vita tua giù. Tu sei la voce che tanta fede mi dà, che mi ripete quel giorno presto verrà. Muero ogni sera la dolce speranza lasciando nel cor gelo e squallor, ma nel mattina rinasce più vero ed enisce il dolor col suo tepor. Tu sei la voce che tanta fede mi dà, che mi ripete quel giorno presto verrà, che mi ripete presto verrà.
There is sweet escape, and there is singing the blues, going under the protection of creativity into the heart of sorrow. Nostalgia for the life that before sorrow is a part of that. And they did have another life, as hard as it may be to remember or to credit. As the quartet plays these next pieces by Emile Coué, who wrote them in the POW camps of Spital and Kreuzberg, we see some images. These are photographs that were taken from the prisoners as they arrived in Auschwitz. Often roused from their beds in the dead of night, what they chose to take with them from their homes were the photos of the people they loved and the life they had lived: birthdays, weddings, a day in the park. When we speak of the people of the Holocaust, we usually are emphasizing how they died. But for them, and for all of us who will die, the question is not how did they die. The question is how did they live. struggle. When we are put into a situation like a concentration camp, the inner experience must be overwhelming, bringing with it every question about the nature of life, of people, and of God. One of the most profound artists locked in the camps was Victor Ullmann. Toward the end of the war, when conditions were becoming more and more tense and more difficult, Ullmann and his librettist, Peter Keen, created an hour-long opera called The Kaiser of Atlantis, which was both a profound reckoning with these questions and a reflection of the surreal weirdness of their situation. For instance, writing and performing opera while being starved. An SS officer in the camp, watching one of the later rehearsals, reported that the opera ridiculed Hitler. And the very next day, Ullmann, Keen, their families, and everyone associated with the production were shipped to Auschwitz and murdered. But in fact, the figure of the Kaiser in the opera is complex. And in the end, the opera is about the Kaiser's transformation. Let us tell you the story.
Achtung! Achtung! Hello? Hello? Tonight, I will tell you a story. Der Kaiser von Atlantis, the Emperor of Atlantis. It takes place somewhere and is peopled by 7 characters. First of all, we have the Kaiser, the king. The Emperor of Atlantis. He's locked himself away in his gigantic palace with no windows, and nobody has seen him for years. Next, a drummer, boom, 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 shh, 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 boom, boom, and a loudspeaker. Then there is a soldier and a maiden. And then, death. Because there are no stories without death. It's just whether you choose to mention him or not. And finally, Harlequin, who, under his tears, still manages to laugh. The first scene takes place somewhere. Death and Harlequin are waiting in the wings of life, so to speak, watching the world go by. This world where the living have forgotten how to laugh and the dying how to die. So, hello, we're beginning. Death and Harlequin are sitting on a bench. Death, almost doubled over, is drawing in the sand with his saber. And Harlequin is singing to the moon. The moon climbs over the hills on stilts. Farewell to night's pleasures of love and wine. It's love men yearn for, but there is no return for. No return? Now night is full upon us. So what are we to drink now? What are we to drink now? Blood is what we'll drink now. And what are we to kiss now? The devil's ass. We'll kiss the devil's ass. The world is topsy-turvy and whirling like a carousel, and soon we'll all fall off. Oh, moon white as fleece, blood hot and wine sweet, no love in store for us, till we cross to paradise. Death, a little irritated, asks, how can you sing? I always sing, says Harlequin, but the days now all run together. Is it Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday? Who knows? I sing, but death, my old friend, who would want to be me? Trapped under this skin. I find myself repulsive. Won't you kill me? It's what you're trained for, after all. Each day, endless war, the same day, over and over. Each moment is unbearable. Won't you kill me? Death says, it's no use nagging. Your name's not on my list. The laughter that mocks itself is immortal. You can't escape your own nature. You'll always be Harlequin. And what's that? Harlequin asks. A brown and faded photograph? No one finds me funny. All I want is to recall the thrill of a woman's touch. You're pathetic, Death says. You're scarcely 300 years old. I've been at this charade since time first began. I used to be somebody once. Back in the days when men dressed themselves in gold and purple, carrying bright banners, their horses glittering in the sun, drums, many drums, all to pay me homage. The years I spent keeping pace with Attila and his fleet-footed ponies, pursuing Hannibal's elephants. Now my old legs have grown weary. They refuse to keep up with these motorized chariots of war. They've taken over, and new angels of death are here to replace me, the old-fashioned artisan of dying. I was a craftsman of each individual death. Now it's an industrial slaughterhouse. Nobody appreciates me, Harlequin, except perhaps for you. But your name's not on my list. Their conversation is interrupted by the drummer, who announces, "Hello, hello, Achtung, Achtung! By the grace of God, we, Überall, the glorious pride of the fatherland, blessing to mankind, ruler of both Indies, emperor of Atlantis, imperial duke in the lands of Ophir, high priest of Astarte, lord of Hungary, cardinal prince of Ravenna, king of Jerusalem, and to glorify our divine descent from God, archpope, have, in our flawless, truly perfect, all-penetrating wisdom, decided to declare throughout our empire total, all-out, holy war, each against the other, no survivors. Every child, or boy child, or girl child, every maiden, wife and mother, every man both crooked and upright, shall now carry weapons in this holy crusade, which must end in victory for our most apostolic majesty, and in destruction of all evil forces throughout our mighty realm. Our old ally Death shall lead the way with his glorious banner in the name of our great future and his great past. Fight bravely! Decreed in the 15th year of our beneficent reign, signed Emperor. Listening to this, Death looks over at Harlequin and says, "You see how they mock me? To take men's souls is my job, not his. So, hello. In the interest of your great future, I, Death, am making the future of mankind great. And very, very long." And he breaks his saber over his knee. I, Death, resign! As the Kaiser waits alone in his imperial glory, the loudspeaker announces the news. Hello. Great hordes bearing weapons, aeroplanes, and underground torpedoes have destroyed the ramparts surrounding our third largest city, dropping 10,000 kilos of phosphorus. The inhabitants are dead. Corpses have been delivered to the recycling plant. And what about the terrorist? The Kaiser asks. Hanged at 4:13 as ordered. So, is he dead? Hanged at 4:13 as... Death's bound to arrive at any moment, sir. But it's 5:30. Death's bound to arrive at any moment, sir. Can't the hangman do his job? Shoot him then! Death's bound to arrive at any moment, sir. Überall, sir. The doctor reports a strange disease has broken out. The soldiers cannot die. What are you talking about? How many cannot die? Thousands, Überall, sir. All desperately trying to die. Other reports come in from all over the kingdom, and it soon becomes apparent that Death has quit the field. Kaiser thinks this over, and then barks out a proclamation. I want posters on every street corner. I want announcements on the radio, drummers sent to the village. The glorious Überall Kaiser of Atlantis gives to our deserving soldiers a formula, a secret formula for everlasting life. All shall be kept from death, no matter how sick, no matter how injured. Nothing henceforth shall prevent you from carrying the sword for the fatherland. O Death, where is thy sting? O Hell, where is thy victory? In another part of the kingdom, a maiden and a soldier, denizens of all-out war, confront each other on the battlefield. She fires her pistol at him. He dies. She jumps over his body, thinking she has shot him. He leaps up and overpowers her. "Shoot me! Why don't you?" she says. "When I was a boy," the soldier says, "I had a girl whose eyes were bright like yours. Please, just shoot me! I can't bear that you should suffer. The world, the real world, is so luminous and fresh." "Is it so?" she says. "Could it be that there are landscapes not barren and empty? Could there be meadows, color and fragrance? Could there be mountains, blue and radiant? Could there be words without harshness?" And as they stand in wonder there, they hear the emperor's pronouncement about the end of death from the drummer and come to a different conclusion than the Kaiser. Now that death is dead, they do not need to fight. The drummer argues with them that it is death and war that are interesting. It's the war drum that stirs the blood we all adore. "Run your hands over my curves," he says. "Feel the pull, feel the pride." But the soldier and the maiden, falling and falling in love, see that love can even light up death. Love heals separation. Love unites us all together. Love unites with death and renders him a poet. Love unites with death as one. The Kaiser has lost them. The loudspeaker reports to the Kaiser that Hospital 34 for the living dead has fallen to the rebels. All medical staff have joined the resistance. Other strongholds are falling, one after the other. Collapse is only a matter of time. The Kaiser realizes that death, by resigning, is defeating him. The Kaiser faces the black cloth that covers the mirror that has always hung in his office and pulls it away. He stares himself in the face and then slowly says, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100, 1,000, 1. And how many million cannon? I chose to live behind walls without windows. Now the windows are open. Through defeat, the mirror has been cleared by the hand of death withheld. The cataract has been removed from our eyes, as if by a mighty surgeon, and we are cured of our blindness. The measure of our sins shall be equaled only by the measure of our punishments. Terrible shall be the pains we shall have to endure. We shall endure them with humility, and we shall not rest until we have rooted out the last vestiges, hatred and callousness from our hearts. He looks into the mirror again. What do men look like? Am I still a man, or just the adding machine of God? Am I a human being? Who are you? He asks his face. And Death and Harlequin answer, you are one of the living dead. In the mirror he sees Death himself, who croons to him Death's own song, the song like that of Harlequin, the song of his own nature. I am Death, the gardener, who sows the seeds of sleep in pain-filled furrows. I root up wilting weeds, life's worn-out souls. I am the gardener who harvests the ripened corn of suffering from your meadows. I am he that frees you from the plague. I am not the plague. I am he that brings relief from pain, not he that causes pain. I am that lovely, cozy nest to which you persecuted mortals fly. I am the greatest freedom feast. I am the final lullaby. Peace is my offering to all my guests. Come, be my guest. Will you come back to us? Kaiser asks. We mortals cannot live without you. I would be prepared to make peace, Death answers. You are prepared to make a sacrifice. Will you be the first to try out the new death? Well, Kaiser answers, I would be prepared to make such a sacrifice, but it wouldn't be fair to my subjects. In that case, Death assures him I cannot come back. Wait! The Kaiser says, who am I? Who am I to turn my back on the one thing the sick and the suffering are begging for? I'll do it. And Death, the old craftsman, said, give me a hand then.
hope. But there are other words, other forms of resistance. They were singing roamed, moaned, owned, roamed, round world, wave, round. If all would take hands all around the sea, they could sing around the world. Other moods, other forms of resistance, other forms of hope.
get our troubles away. If we're on the last repack train, the one less, then the show will be finale to our 5 years long delay. Till then, it's good night, but it's high time 'twas goodbye time, and this the last good night before we are all on our way.
So, we are almost ready to say goodnight, but we have a few more pieces that we feel you'd like to hear.
Así que estamos a punto de decir buenas noches, pero antes tenemos unas cuantas piezas que nos gustaría que escucharan.
We're able to hear the music tonight because an Italian musicologist, pianist, has made it his life's work to gather together, transcribe, collate, reconstruct, and archive scattered rags and scraps salvaged from a much larger body of music that has been lost.
Somos capaces de escuchar esta música esta noche porque un pianista italiano y musicólogo ha hecho el trabajo de su vida para poder reunir, transcribir, recopilar, reconstruir y archivar en dispersos trapos y restos rescatados de la mayoría del cuerpo de la música que se había perdido.
Nevertheless, Professor Francesco Lotoro has reclaimed over 5,000 pieces in this collection.
Sin embargo, Profesor Francesco Lotoro cuenta con más de 5,000 piezas de esta colección.
There are symphonies and ocarina days, children's choruses, and cabaret, of which you have heard a small selection.
Hay sinfonías, cancioncillas, ocariña, coros y cabaret. Cabarets de los cuales han escuchado una pequeña selección.
On a visit to Auschwitz, he came across 2 pieces of music and said to himself, there must be more. He started with finding music written in the concentration camps, and then found that there was music in POW camps, internment camps, prisons. In fact, almost every country in the world during World War II had camps.
En una visita a Auschwitz se encontró con 2 piezas de la música y dice a sí mismo, tiene que haber más. Él comenzó la búsqueda de la música escrita en los campos de concentración y luego descubrieron que había música en los campos de prisiones de la guerra, campos de concentración, prisiones. De hecho, casi todos los países del mundo durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial tuvo campamentos.
Francesco spent the next 25 years working on this archive. Halfway through, he converted to Judaism.
Francesco pasó los siguientes 25 años trabajando en este archivo y luego se convirtió al judaísmo.
Then one day he received a large package of musical manuscripts in the mail. It was from a man who was the son of a prisoner who had written the music in a British POW camp. He was German.
Entonces un día recibió un gran paquete de manuscritos musicales por correo. Era de un hombre que era hijo de un preso que había escrito la música en un campo de prisioneros británico. Él era alemán.
Francesco took a long breath. He realized that he had to decide what he was doing. He had to decide who his people were.
Francesco tomó un largo suspiro. Se dio cuenta de que tenía que decidir lo que tenía que hacer.
And so he did. He decided, my people are artists. My people are musicians. And he took the manuscripts into the collection.
Y así lo decidió. Mi gente son artistas, mi pueblo son músicos. Y tomó los manuscritos para la colección.
The things that are inhuman and brutal in this world happen over and over again. But through the Latihan, we have the possibility of completion in our own lives, so that we do not have to begin again and repeat the lowest cruelties. We have experienced a place where cruelty doesn't exist.
Las cosas que son inhumanas en este mundo suceden una y otra vez. A través del Latihan tenemos la posibilidad de la realización en nuestras propias vidas. Lo que no tenemos que empezar de nuevo y repetir las más bajas de las crueldades. Hemos experimentado un lugar donde no existe la crueldad.
So, we would like to wish you good night and let the music say the rest. And after you have said good night, the reality is that we are all alone.
Por lo tanto, nos gustaría desearle muy buenas noches y dejar que la música diga el resto. Y después de que hemos dicho buenas noches, realidad es que estamos solo uno con Dios.
Le Honora no noi, no rio, le turi senu, ni calmo ponovoto, bismiro, no rialo, Tzedek umishpot mihon kiswochet chesed ve'med nikalmo Asherei kan mantikso beves Elohim nihade beroge.
sana can Allahu. Urda darshi palemu. Lule.
Those who believed and had faith, and those who suffered in exile and struggled and strove in the path of Allah, they have the hope and the mercy of Allah, and Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful.